Spider-Man No Way Home should just be renamed into Spider-Man No Way. No Way because the movie for at least one day managed to unite all of Spider-Man Twitter and was able to make Spider-Man fans universally happy. Spider-Man No Way because the movie was able to accomplish what I've been begging for years, a Spider-Man movie with genuine stakes. No Way because as I walked out of the theater, I kept going to myself, no way. No Way Home fixed MCU Spider-Man for me, and it used one of Spider-Man's worst stories to do it, which is honestly very commendable. And what's amazing to see is that everyone I've seen has enjoyed the ending. In fact, they loved it. Other than some MCU fans that want to see their cinnamon roll Peter Parker be happy all the time, you know? It was cool to see an MCU Spider-Man movie finally have a sad ending, one more melancholic than happy, but hopeful all the same. And there are multiple ways No Way Home alters the Peter Parker character, and the story works as a massive retcon in such a smooth way that I feel the audience hasn't realized that it happened. You see, I don't think No Way Home was the plan for MCU Spider-Man from his first appearance in Civil War, and I think people should stop acting like it is. I think Disney, Marvel, and Sony took a calculated risk and it paid off fully, and I'm very excited to talk about it. But first, let's talk about today's sponsor. Shaker and Spoon is a monthly cocktail subscription box that delivers the craft cocktail experience right to your front door. Each monthly box arrives with 3 original recipes created by world-class bartenders that you can't get anywhere else, as well as enough ingredients, syrups, bitters, aromatics, garnishes, and more for 12 cocktails, 4 from each recipe. With Shaker and Spoon, you no longer need to seek out hard-to-find cocktail ingredients or buy full-size bottles of things you'll end up only using once. This is a super convenient alternative. Not just that, Shaker and Spoon introduces you to spirits and flavor combinations you may never have discovered otherwise. These dope complex drinks are made simple. With easy-to-follow instructions and how-to videos, you can learn new techniques while creating excellent craft cocktails.
Damn! That's actually really good. Try it.
So click the link below and use code Browntable at checkout, or go to shakerandspoon.com/browntable for $20 off your first box. I mean, look at these slap. I've always wanted more variety and this just helps a ton. So that's shakerandspoon.com/browntable, or just click the link below and use code Browntable for $20 off your first box. Thanks so much, Shaker and Spoon, for sponsoring today's video. No Way Home is really interesting. I've had a ton of discussions with fellow YouTube creators on what it all means. Looking back on Civil War, it seems like Uncle Ben has existed, and that events occurred that instilled a responsibility on Peter, but in the film No Way Home, it seems like he hears with great power comes great responsibility for the first time. Even though he says, and I quote, "I know," he seems to respond to it in a way that means he understands what May's telling him, but it's not like he's actually heard the line before. Plus, I think it was never John Watts' intention to have the line be said by Uncle Ben. Hell, Happy says it in a throwaway line in a deleted scene from Homecoming. So how I take away Peter and Spider-Man in general in No Way Home is that the entire Home trilogy is his origin story. His origin journey is finally completed.
Oh, but Mauricio, he literally became Spider-Man at the end of Homecoming.
Shut the fuck up! Shut up! Okay. The messy plot of Far From Home indicates that he's still learning to be Spider-Man. I feel like it's been more about becoming a hero and calling himself Spider-Man than him actually becoming the Spider-Man we know and love. He doesn't really fully comprehend what being Spider-Man means, and by the end of No Way Home, he does. Because, you know, he literally loses everyone he loves in this movie, and I fucking love that. Listen. Whenever Peter Parker is sad, I am happy. Let me bask in his misery. Anyway, Peter in the MCU gets his powers and his original message off screen. Surely it'll be covered in the freshman year animated series, but his full journey into becoming the traditional Spider-Man has come to a close. Another cue for me realizing this movie was meant to close Spider-Man's origin story was Peter following, as Goblin calls it, Aunt May's moral mission. He has to save these villains, right? But it's not something that really comes from him. It's something May teaches him. At Peter's lowest point in the film, he understandably doesn't give a shit about the villains anymore and doesn't care if they die. And Spider-Man shouldn't be like this. Spider-Man should care. That's the point of the story, by the way. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. And this is where the Spider-Men show up. Dude, Toby? Andrew? My biggest thought wasn't, oh my god, I'm gonna come all over my seat, what will I do? My biggest thought was, dude, if this movie ruins them and writes them all out of character, I will hate this movie for the rest of my life. Thankfully, seeing them on screen is absolute magic. Like its villains, the movie handles the characters to perfection. Except for the lizard. I hate what they did to my boy. So No Way Home could have actually worked without the Spider-Man, but thankfully it includes them and makes them necessary to the story. Sure, it's fan service, but it isn't just fluff. These are real people with real events that have happened to them way prior to No Way Home, and the film treats these events with sincerity. These Spider-Men have gone through what Tom Peter is going through, and they instill in him their wisdom. It's this funny but endearing visual of seeing Peter Parker lift himself back up, and I think that's brilliant. So you have the OGs. They talk to Tom about their failures, their struggles. They've lost people, and in their anger, in their lust for righting what's been wronged, they lost themselves. Andrew is still going through the works, having become a more violent Spider-Man. Meanwhile, Tobey has been able to get through his dark side successfully. Both know what it means to want to kill, to want revenge. It's about telling Tom Peter that wanting to kill Green Goblin is valid, but killing him is wrong. With great power, there must also come great responsibility. And so with May's passing and the Spider-Man helping Tom come back to his senses, traditional Spider-Man takes his first steps. It's an interesting take on the origin story, but MCU Spider-Man is such a wildly different take on the character that I'm okay with how this bit was handled. Seeing Tom Peter getting along with the other Spider-Men and them actually liking each other was a great change of pace. I feel like usually if people would write this kind of thing where alternate versions of the same character met up, they'd all dislike each other, or not particularly like each other's company, and they'd only come together by the end of the story or something like that, kinda like the Avengers. And thankfully that's not the case here. The Spider-Men have this sibling dynamic that absolutely works, and it's so fun to see. Them heading off to defeat and cure their villains was honestly really wholesome, and I quite enjoyed that they weren't going off to just beat their asses and call it a day. It's a good Spider-Man story, a classic Spider-Man conundrum, right? And so we reach the finale. The Spider-Men get their moments, and Tom Peter almost kills the Green Goblin before being stopped by himself. Well, Tobey Peter, but you get what I mean. And it's an interesting way of seeing it. Quite possibly the purest Spider-Man, one who's been at it for so long, now older and wiser, one who's been where Tom is now, stopping him before he does something he regrets. It's as if what Spider-Man is meant to be is physically stopping Tom from killing the Goblin. This is also great for Tobey's arc. His arc in this film is about curing the Goblin and letting him live. So that's cool. And all this allows Tom Peter to continue his journey towards becoming the Spider-Man we know he's meant to be. By the way, seeing Tom actually angry and sticking a pumpkin bomb in Goblin's glider, his face showing that he's fully willing to kill him, now that is Spider-Man. It's great to see the angry side of Peter Parker, the side of him that's just full of rage and regret. It's his suppressing of that side of him that makes Peter Parker's stories so enjoyable too. And afterwards, enemies of Spider-Man that know his identity are coming through, and Doctor Strange can't stop them from coming into their dimension. And I didn't think they'd go to this extreme, but Peter decides to have the world forget his whole ass existence. And so now, nobody knows Peter's Spider-Man, because Peter doesn't exist. And to me, this is a banger idea. Because like in the comics, right? In the comics, Peter unmasks himself to the world, and it fucks up his life to the point that Aunt May gets capped. Oh, time isn't gonna kill this lady? This bullet will. Bang! Outta here, dude. So Peter makes a deal with the literal devil to save Aunt May's life. But, well, it costs him his marriage. And by that, I don't mean time stays the same and his marriage is just destroyed. No. This also makes literal years of Spider-Man stories null and void. It sends him back to when he was way younger and Harry Osborn was still alive, etc. It was a lot. The issue here isn't that Peter lost, because Peter losing is fundamental to a Spider-Man story. It's that the character of Spider-Man has lost so many years of stories, because it's essentially a retcon. No character remembers anything, it's like they never happened. With No Way Home, it's a similar idea. Peter loses, everyone forgets him, but Spider-Man still exists. His stories live on not only through the public, but through Peter. And Peter himself knows everything he's gone through. And as he's the main character, this isn't a regression for the Spider-Man character. If anything, it's a push forward. Because now he doesn't have all this baggage, right? Now he can be the purest Spider-Man he can be. Freed from the shackles of Tony Stark, taking his Aunt May's message with him. And now finally understanding that he has to keep his identity a secret to protect the ones he loves. Look, seeing the ending unfold was actual bliss. I guessed the ending somewhat, and I actually cheered in the theater because I got it so on point. I actually got the dialogue extremely close to the final result.
Actually, I'm here because I've actually been meaning to try the new pumpkin spice flavor. I've never had that one.
And I love the coffee shop scene. It's one of my favorite scenes in the movie because Peter struggles. He can see what he wants, but knows he can't have it. And that's peak Spider-Man, and I'm so happy that this is the ending they chose. I've seen people on Twitter say stuff like, hey, don't say that No Way Home fixed MCU Spider-Man, because this was the plan all along. It wasn't. It's already been said that there was an alternate ending where Peter allows his identity to remain public. We all know Kevin Feige thought secret identities were overplayed and decided to just never have secret identities in the MCU ever. And we all know that Tom Holland fought for some of the ending of No Way Home to be what it ended up being. Plus, No Way Home was at one point a Kraven story. So how would a story like that even have a multiversal collapse and the erasure of an identity? I don't know. All I know is that this was not the planned endgame for the Spider-Man character's first trilogy. But I'm happy it is, because instead of being Iron Man's successor, instead of being a part of the Avengers or the Young Avengers or whatever, he's back to being what the character is supposed to be. A man that is broke, working hard in both his job and education, and regardless of his emotional state, he has to go swing out into the city as Spider-Man to protect people and make sure innocents don't go through losses similar to those he's gone through. The ending of No Way Home reminded me of my favorite part of Spider-Man 2, the first 30 minutes. I keep going on about this every time I bring Spider-Man 2 up, but listen. Spider-Man 2 is amazing, even when Peter isn't Spider-Man. The dude is just going through it, and we see his life and how shitty it is. He goes to his apartment and just wallows. He's a freaking superhero. But he's a person, just like us. This isn't a Peter Parker who knows a billionaire, who has made his suit with fancy Stark technology. No, this is someone who struggles with money, someone who has relationship problems, someone who has uneasy friendships, and someone who has responsibilities that have to be taken care of regardless of personal dilemmas. And I wanted something like that for the first 30 minutes of No Way Home, but we just got a speedrun of Peter's life with his identity revealed, and that's okay, it was fun, but I'm so happy we at least got it at the end. Peter not being able to spend time with his friends and leaving them be, Peter visiting May's grave and saying goodbye to Happy, and then Peter moving into his new apartment ready to take on the world as Spider-Man. I literally exploded in the theater like I genuinely was in awe. I had my hand over my mouth, I was flabbergasted, I was in shock. I couldn't believe they pulled off what I had wanted for so long. It feels like they actually listened to this part of the fan base that was upset with Far From Home and the overall direction with the character. Yeah, once Peter opened that door and we got a look at his messed up room, I was smiling. He looks out through his window, mask in hand, he's made a new suit and it looks classic. The logo is based off the Spider-Man he encountered with a spin of his own, and all of this is probably one of, if not my favorite ending to a Spider-Man movie ever. Because, you know, it feels like an invitation to a world of movies I've been wanting to go back to since 2014. When The Amazing Spider-Man 2 dropped. Now look, I'm not saying the movie's perfect and it's sloppy, but that tone, that Peter Parker Spider-Man dichotomy and lifestyle, that's peak. And sure, Homecoming had similar vibes, but it felt very innocent, very chill, and it felt very Avengers-y, if that makes sense. So while I love that movie, it's not the same feeling. To me, personally, don't get your panties in a bunch. And so, with a magical flick of the wrist, Doctor Strange helped Peter change Spider-Man's destiny, reverting the status quo to a pre-MCU Spider-Man, and I have never been happier. Sure, Spider-Man's been with the Avengers, but no one knows who he is or how young he is. Yeah, I'm so happy. I just hope Sony and Disney Marvel take advantage of the situation and keep Peter on his own. To me, that's where he thrives. I hope he has more street-level situations to deal with in his college trilogy, which is 100% happening, by the way. Sorry, Tom, Sony's got your ass and you're gonna be Spider-Man till you're 40. But hey, if they make good movies and they're under Tom's guidance, as I said, he's partly culpable for the banger ending of the movie, then I think we'll be okay. Hey, thanks so much for watching the video. This is my last video, ever. For 2021, that is. In 2022, hopefully there's just as much, if not more, content from the Browntable channel, and make sure to check out Interstellar Ranger Commence, an animated series I'm making. That show's coming out in 2022, you can check out the trailers now. Thanks so much to everyone that sent fan art. The amount of fan art I've gotten for Interstellar Ranger Commence is insane, and so just thank you. Like, I got so much stuff. I even got loot stuff, man. That was dope. So if you have any more of that, send more of that. That's awesome. I'm not even joking, the staff loves it. And thank you so much, patrons, for supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me, especially, during these times it's rough, so, what you pitch in, it really helps and I sincerely appreciate it. So thank you so much for supporting the channel in whatever way you can. Much love to everyone, hope 2022 is better than 2021, fingers crossed it is, and yeah, thanks so much for coming to the table, and I'll see you all next time.